Give me a little intro there, Gomer.
There's no turning back now.
Let's put on the show.
You're listening to the Station 71 podcast. My name is Mario, and this week I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Beth?
And Brian.
So if you listened to last week's, you know this week is a little bit of an off episode. We're doing a continuation kind of what we were planning on talking about last week. So as a result, there is no news this week. It's because I'm away. Just a lot of shakeup going on these last couple weeks with everything that happened here. So we're trying to get these episodes out so we don't miss anything. And here we are finishing up our March Magic bracket and doing some listener feedback question discussion that we had saved up. So that said, are you guys ready to dive into the hard choices that we're about to have to make here?
Yeah, I guess.
I know you just came back and you're probably like, this is the furthest thing from your mind right now. You're probably put this way out, and I don't want to think about this, but I guess we have to. So yeah, let's dive into some of these brackets here. First up, we've got Muppet Vision 3D versus Mission Space. This is an easy one for me, guys. I gotta go Muppet Vision.
Yeah, Muppet Vision.
Me too.
Oh wow, those G-forces, Beth. That was.
I mean, yeah, but those Muppets, though.
Oh.
You know, I'm kind of surprised Muppet Vision's still in it, but at the same time I'm not, because I think I probably voted for it every time. So
Let's take a look back and see at what Muppet Vision has beaten out. It's got Mission Space from this last round. It did Festival of the Lion King. I mean, round 3 it was against Enchanted Tiki Room. That was a tough one. And then Turtle Talk with Crush. So,
It was
Muppet
not
Vision.
a tough one.
I don't know. Enchanted Tiki
Not
Room.
for me. Well, I was saying Turtle Talk
Oh
versus
yeah.
Muppet Vision.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Muppet Vision had some tough ones it went up against. So, I'm happy it's here, but we'll see how it fares in the next couple rounds. Next one we've got is Living with the Land versus Finding Nemo the Musical. Are you both going Living with the Land? Because
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm going to go Finding Nemo the Musical just to give it that odd vote, but not that it matters, because Living with the Land is moving on to the next round.
See, I love Finding Nemo the Musical, but it's not particularly unique. And Living with the Land is one of the most unique attractions at Disney, so that's why this one's easy for me.
That's fair, and I totally think I agree with that. There's not another attraction that's like Living with the Land, so I can see why you would say it. Oh boy. Alright, this is the one it's gonna be so hard for us. Haunted Mansion versus Tower of Terror.
It's not hard, but it's sad.
That's it. The choice is obvious, but it still pains me to kick Tower of Terror out.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same. I thought that was gonna be a lot harder than it was. Kilimanjaro Safari versus Pirates of the Caribbean.
Now, this is a tough one.
This is a tough one.
Not for me. I gotta go Pirates.
I am seriously, legitimately having to sit here and think about this. This is so vastly different, but
I'm going to say Safari.
Oh, she's making you choose.
oh boy. I mean, it's so hard. I have to go Pirates. I love both of these, and I love, Kilimanjaro is Animal Kingdom to me, but I don't know, Pirates was just so inspirational, and
It is iconic.
It is. It's to me, it's the most iconic Disney ride. Might not be my absolute favorite, but it's definitely up there, and it's too iconic not to vote past Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I've talked about my love for pirates on this podcast enough. It's hard to say that a lot of attractions can pass this. Kilimanjaro Safari is definitely one that I did not want to see it up against because that is a hard decision. Like you said, that is Animal Kingdom, but there's just so much about pirates to love that I can't not cast my vote for it.
I would have absolutely guessed two of these attractions being in the semifinals. The other two, I'm pretty surprised about.
I like how this bracket shaped out too, because you have the one side of the semifinals that is like the underdog pick with
For
Muppet
sure.
Vision 3D and Living with the Land, and then the other side it's like top contenders with Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion.
You know, multiple people have been have immediately turned this podcast off because we just said that we put Muppet Visions into the semifinals out of every attraction at Disney World.
All right, so here's the funny thing about this. The one thing I have to say that I really like about how this shook up is because everything was at random, we had some of the best mashups, and things just made it a lot farther than they should have. Like Wilderness Explorers in round 4.
Yeah.
That was
okay.
one I would not have seen coming.
That's a good point. So, anybody listening out there, I don't think any of us are saying that, Muppet Vision is in the top 4 of attractions at Disney World, but yeah, it got some pretty easy competition.
And if you're going to go that far, I mean, a lot of our listeners, judging by the brackets that they sent in, Flight of Passage was in the final round, if not the winner. And Flight of Passage got voted out in round 4 for us. So that's surprising for you guys, too.
Okay, it went up against Pirates, though. So, I mean, that's understandable, right? I feel like any real Disney fan, that's understandable, at least to them.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
so. Now, are there any of these that you're surprised went out earlier in the bracket before we start talking about our final stuff? Seven Doors Mine Train went out pretty early, and I'm pretty surprised about that.
I don't know. I'm not surprised because I know us on this podcast and I kind of know our feelings about it. I feel like if you put this out for everybody in the Disney community to vote on, obviously Seven Dwarfs makes it a lot further, but I don't think any of us are particularly fond of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's definitely 100% true. Country Bears only made it 2 rounds. I mean, it passed 1 round and then got destroyed by Living with the Land the next round.
It had a bye in the first round there, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Because the first round was actually, it was up against Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom in its first round, and then it went up against Living with the Land and lost 3-0. I don't know. I mean, a lot of these make sense, and it's funny that I'm looking at this now, and I kind of wish some things shook out a little differently. Mm-hmm. But I'm very happy with how the semifinals bracket ended up.
I'm just looking back to I love that we all voted Tiki Room over Soarin'. That makes me happy.
Well, we decided it was New Soarin', and that was not a hard decision.
That immediately drove the nail into the coffin.
Yeah. It might have stood more of a chance with Old Soarin', but I think I still probably would have gone with Tiki Room.
Yeah. Who voted for Beauty and the Beast live on stage?
Probably me, because
I know it wasn't me.
I have a really funny, personal memory, so it was 100%, nostalgia based vote there.
I'm trying to find it. What did it go up against?
It's a Small World.
Oh, dang, hang on. I might have voted for it.
I was about to say, Honestly, I probably would have voted for almost anything over Small World. I can't
No,
handle it.
Small World was 2-1 against Beating the Beast live on stage, so
So it's definitely
I was
me.
definitely probably Beth.
Yeah. I just don't like feeling like I'm slowly going insane, and that's how I feel on Small World.
Yeah, that's fair. I would have liked to see like some more odd picks make it further. I mean, I'm happy with the ones that did, like Wilderness Explorers. That was a good one that made it 3 rounds. I was surprised Mission Space made it as far as it did, but I guess that also had a good stack up against it. But yeah, for the most part, I'm very happy with how this shook out. And I guess we should decide our semifinal winners and then our finalist. Do we want to do the sleeper pick first or the top contenders first?
Let's do the underdogs.
All right, so we got Muppet Vision versus Living with the Land.
This sucks.
Yeah.
So,
I love Muppet Vision, but I think when we did our like top 5 picks way back when, I'm almost positive I had Living with the Land in my top 5, and I definitely still stand by that. I love Living with the Land, so it's the winner for me.
Same here. I really love Living with the Land. I love
Man.
Muppet Vision, but I'm a nature nerd.
I am sad to say it because I have definitely said how much I love Muppet Vision on this podcast, and I truly do not want to see it go, but I have to say Living with the Land too.
I don't, as often as I go, I don't have very many like every time attractions, but the Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom is for me, and Living with the Land at Epcot is like an every time attraction for me.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Nice segue.
So this next one, Haunted Mansion versus Pirates, I think that's an easy enough one for us to decide too, because in our bios on our website, everyone mentions the Haunted Mansion at least once. So
Haunted Mansion for life.
Yeah.
all 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh boy, you know what?
We
This
should
is
have
so-
not let Haunted Mansion in, honestly, because I feel like this was just bound to happen.
Yeah. Like, I think it would have been fun. Like, yeah, because we knew that we were all going to vote Haunted Mansion to the end. I think it would have been kind of cool because, like, that would have put Tower of Terror and Pirates against each other, which would have been a very interesting pick.
Yeah,
I
for
also
sure.
think
I would put Splash Mountain and Tower of Terror against each other, too, so that's another cool one. So it's like, man, yeah, that would have shaken
Maybe-
things up.
maybe next year we should pull the Haunted Mansion out of this bracket. But I still think I'm happy with where this landed because this bracket is very telling of this podcast. We very much gush about both of these attractions, probably a lot more than we should. So,
Nah, speak for yourself.
so I'm gonna say that it's time to decide the winner, and
Are we deciding or are we just announcing?
I don't know.
We decided
I don't know.
before we started this thing.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a vote that they want to cast that is aside from the one that I just said?
Nah.
No, I love both of these. Both of them are in my top 5 of Disney attractions, but Haunted Mansion will forever and always like have a special place, and I think just stand above the rest.
Agree.
Yeah. All right. So to no surprise to anyone,
No
The
one's
Haunted Mansion.
surprised.
the Haunted Mansion is the winner of this bracket.
People listening to us starting this bracket are like, well, I don't even need to know how this ends.
You know what's funny? Like a lot of people really enjoyed this contest, so I'm surprised no one called me out on that at first. Like thinking back on it now, just putting the Haunted Mansion in was probably a bad idea, like you said. But
We learned a
That's a-
lesson.
we learned a lesson the hard way.
Maybe, I think would be really interesting for a next time type of thing is that we each put in like our top 3, and we have to take those out completely.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's fair.
Then
I
we
think
have to
that's-
really think about our decisions.
So I want to tell you, I'm looking at this now, and I'm going back through it, and it looks like no one predicted that Mission Space was gonna make it in that round. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like no one predicted that outcome at all. They thought Jungle Cruise was gonna make it a lot farther than it did. So that's a sad, unfortunate mishap.
Mission
in this
Space
bracket.
had I think the easiest matchups in this up until it had to go up against Muppet Vision.
But I will say that everyone on our, well, not everyone, probably about 75% of the people that listen to this podcast and filled out the bracket for me put Haunted Mansion as the winner. So
Good.
I feel
Alright,
less
so
bad about that.
So we are pretty predictable then.
We are, but a lot of them also thought that Flight of Passage would make it to the end.
Hey, I tried,
people-
guys. I tried.
A few people thought Pirates was going to make it there, which that's a fair assumption, I guess. But looking back, it looks like for the most part, our listeners seem to know us, at least up until the Jungle Cruise line, where that's... I mean, we love Jungle Cruise here, but it is not warranting enough of the votes that people cast for it. So... I guess before we wrap up this week's a little bit shorter episode, we have some listener discussion we wanted to talk about. I know we have a tendency to let some of the emails sit in the bag for a while and then like spit out one or two at a time. These are 2 that I know have been sitting in there for a little bit, so I want to apologize first of all for letting them sit. But we can talk about some of this stuff while we're here. One was from listener April. She had sent us an email that we had responded to earlier about doing a Disney destination for her birthday, and she wanted to come back to us and ask a question about Premier passports and some of the other things that she may have had options for. For our listeners at home, her initial plan was to do Disneyland for a couple days and just kind of get a feel for what's out there and everything. She had said it was too expensive, but she almost feels like getting the Premier passport was worth it, and then not having to decide about the cost if she goes about 3 or 4 times. She wanted to know if we think that's worth it, and she also had a follow-up question to Brian that is totally unrelated and wants to know what the best time of day is to go to Sanaa, assuming that you get to see the animals there. So,
I guess I'll
Yeah.
touch on that first really quick. Yeah, I think you can see better at lunch. Let me say you have a better chance of seeing the animals. Like if it is at night and they happen to come up close, there's plenty of light out there that you will be able to see them. But yeah, either way, I would recommend going at lunch. One, it's a good bit cheaper to go at lunch, and it's still really good food. But yeah, also you'll probably have a better chance to see the animals.
So, I like that answer. Do we know anything? Oh, okay. I just found the price on the Premier passport. So to her other question, for those people that don't know about the Premier passport, it's admission to Walt Disney World, Florida, and Disneyland Resort in California with no blackout dates. This is like the annual pass for both coasts. That includes all 4 Walt Disney World parks, the water parks, Wide World of Sports Complex, and Oak Trail Golf Course, along with Disneyland and California Adventure. Gives you the photo pass option that's included in your annual pass, and Disney Max Pass for Disneyland. So all that stuff for $1,949 plus tax. Is it worth it if you go 3 or 4 times a year?
Is that if she's saying 3 or 4 times, like I guess it depends on how long you're going each time, like how many actual days you're spending in the park, and how many of those are at Disneyland instead of Disney World. But overall, I haven't really looked into it, and I I guess I would have thought the pass would be more than that. That really doesn't seem like that bad of a deal if you plan on doing like a week-long vacation in each coast.
So her initial email was 3 days at Disneyland. So let's go under the assumption that she's going to do 4 3-day trips. So that's 12 days.
Is she saying at each 3 or 4 trips, or 3 or 4 trips total split between the two?
Probably split between the two because it says, I almost feel that getting the Premier Pass is worth it. Then I don't have to worry about the cost if I decide to go 3 or 4 times.
Then I would say, well, if she already has a Disney World annual pass, then I believe you can just upgrade those. That seems like that would definitely be cheaper.
And I think the other thing that we had determined at one point is that the cutoff for like how many days it's worth it to upgrade to an annual pass is roughly around like 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if you're doing like Disneyland and Disney World, it's probably worth it.
Honestly, I don't think it has as much to do with how many days you're spending in the parks, more so having to do with how much you're taking advantage of the discounts. Because while I feel like that is a huge chunk of it, like my annual pass being like the, I don't know, platinum pass at Disney World, I don't know, it was like 800 and change for a renewal, I believe. And that pays it for itself in like a couple of long weekends if I'm using the discounts pretty heavily for merchandise, and not to mention the parking costs. So I think that she could definitely make it worth it.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I am vaguely aware of, obviously I haven't really done Disneyland in depth, Max Pass, so that's $15 a day, right? Do you know how that works, Beth? Like, did you look into that at all?
Yes, we used it, and it was absolutely amazing. I wish that our Fast Pass system was more like that, honestly, because basically the way that it works is that you can book a Fast Pass. I think the time slot varies. I can't remember what the algorithm is, but it's basically like every 1 to 3 hours or something you can book one, even if you already have outstanding ones. And I think as soon as you use one, you can book another one, if I'm not mistaken. So we got tons more Fast Passes at Disneyland than we would have at Disney World, just based on the differences in the two systems. So I think it is extremely worth the extra cost, or in this case it would be included, which is even better.
So it's like a rolling Fast Pass, so like you get one you use one?
So if I remember correctly, the way that it works is that you have to be in the park, like you can't make it in advance. Like you have to be within a certain vicinity. So like when we were at California Adventure, we were making Fast Passes at Disneyland, but you couldn't do it if you were like, 3 miles away or something. So it's not like our system where you can make it from anywhere in the world. And then, if I remember correctly, it was you make the reservation for a Fast Pass, and then it tells you can make another at this time. And I think it is based on like 3-hour windows, like 3-hour periods throughout the day somehow. Like I said, I can't remember how exactly the algorithm worked, but like, let's say I have a Fast Pass that I booked at, and it's, 9:30 in the morning. It'll say like, here's the time you can book the next one. And even if my Fast Pass that I booked at 9:30 in the morning was for like 8 o'clock in the evening, I can still book as many times as it will allow, if that makes sense. Like, at that time period, I can book another one regardless of how many outstanding ones I have. Does that make kind of sense?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. That's an
it's
interesting
really hard
system
to explain. It took me a second to kind of get the hang of it, but like I was standing in line for stuff, making fast passes. Like, I would set a timer or like an alarm on my phone. Like, this is the time it said I could make another one. And so there was a point that I had probably 3 fast passes like stacked up, and then I was still able to keep making more, even though I hadn't used those yet.
Huh, that's interesting, and I kind of think I agree with you, but I also see how our system would not work with that.
Right. I wish that our system was more like that. Not in necessarily a sense where you have to pay for it, but the fact that, I don't know, I don't like the whole, here you have this 1 hour window and you can't book anything until after that, and then you can't book a rolling one until you've used the other 3. So if you book a Fantasmic Fast Pass, you're pretty much screwed for the day. Like, I don't like how that works, and that's not how it worked at Disneyland, so I appreciated that.
Yeah. So I think adding that in is a nice little perk for Disneyland APs, too.
Oh, for sure.
And if they get that, I mean, especially if they get it for the Premier Passport, that's definitely a nice added bonus, and then you get all the parking perks and all that stuff. So that's really cool. I guess maybe we should talk about the benefits too, because the list that I'm looking at has all of those as well, like the discounts and stuff. I think this is standard for AP, but I'm not AP, so correct me if I'm wrong on that. You save up to 20% on select dining, 20% off on select merchandise, 15% off at sports, recreation, and spa locations. It says special events and entertainment. Watch for offers on select event tickets at Walt Disney World. I don't know what that means. Say
that again?
It says special events and entertainment. Watch for offers on select event tickets at Walt Disney World Resort.
Oh, yeah, so, like, discounts for, like, Not So Scary and Very Merry, but it's only on certain days.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Yeah, I did know that. You also save up to 15% on select guided tours at Walt Disney World, and that looks like it appears to be it for that. Dining at Disneyland, you save 15% on select restaurants. Merchandise 20% off, or save up to 20% off on select merchandise, and then the same thing with the ticketed events. So I think for all of that, like you said, the perks definitely help cushion the cost of that AP, and if you're doing it, I think 3 or 4 times, that's definitely probably worth it for that price.
Yeah, especially if you're taking, like you said, long 3 or 4 time trips.
Yeah. So, last email that we have in here is a follow-up from an email that we've kind of been updating along the way. So, a while back, I'm sure most of our listeners will remember, Sam and Charlie emailed us when we were talking about Disney animated movies. They told us about a quest that they were on to watch every Disney animated movie in order, including movies that were animated by Disney Studios and their subsidiaries, companies that Disney owns but aren't necessarily released as like Disney movies. That's a lot of movies, and they emailed us on February 15th to say they finished everything. They have finally watched it all in order. They have completed their quest, and we had put out another call to action to them to ask what their top 5, bottom 5 were, and like if there was anything that held up. So Sam emailed us back and said that they heard the show. They wanted to finally tell us what they had agreed on their top 5 and bottom 5 films, and I think this is pretty interesting. I'm a little surprised by some of these. The bottom, not so much, but the top, it's not an order I would have thought.
Me either, but I also haven't sat down and watched them all in order, so maybe that plays into it.
It might, maybe. So Sam says, in no particular order, Fox and the Hound, Robin Hood, Lilo and Stitch, Little Mermaid, Moana, and a special mention goes to Lady and Tramp. He says, as that's me and Charlie. I'm assuming that's probably one of their favorite movies. So yeah, that's an interesting list. There's a lot of earlier dark period animated films in
Yeah.
there.
I know. I feel like it's very biased, just because of when I grew up. But, I feel like my top five would all be like Renaissance era.
I guess now is a good time to tell you about this thing that I don't know. Well, if this is coming out while I'm away, it's not going to come out around the same time. Someone I follow on Twitter actually reached out to me about a segment of their podcast that they're doing. Well, okay, so she put out a tweet saying that she needed guests on this podcast segment that she was doing, and I was like, sure, why not? I've got some free time. So Cassie at Disflix and Tidbits is doing a segment called Once I Watched a Disney, where she talks to people that are in the Disney community or Disney movies, and they talk about a movie that they haven't seen in a while. So you'll sit down with her first, talk to her about what you remember from the movie and either things you loved or hated about the movie. And then you have to you do that conversation with her, you leave, you'll go and watch the movie, and then you'll come back and you'll discuss it and see how your views and everything changed on it. So she sends me a list, right? And the list is all these movies that are older movies in the Disney catalog and are stuff that I've recently seen. And the one on there that stood out to me was Home on the Range. So
Oh, man.
I'm doing an episode of Disflix and Tidbits with Cassie about Home on the Range. We recorded the first part of it the other day, and I have to say credit to Beth because I didn't remember anything about that movie until we talked about it on our animation episode.
That's understandable. I wish I could forget.
So I have to go watch that movie while I'm on my plane ride to Disney World, and it's going to be interesting. So let's talk about their bottom five, because, when they said they were watching all of the movies in order, this was not a way that I expected them to take it. And I'm kind of laughing at this. Their bottom five, again, in no particular order, is James and the Giant Peach, the Doug movie, Black Cauldron, and all of the war effort movies. He says Victory Through Air passes, although these movies were animated by Disney, they're just World War II propaganda films. Some of the straight to DVD and video sequels.
Fox and the Hound 2.
And sorry, Kirsten, special mention goes to the Tinkerbell movies, though Charlie disagrees with him.
Oh man, I completely forgot. I don't even know if I would consider James and the Giant Peach an animated film, but one that I completely forgotten about.
I like James and the Giant Peach personally.
When was the last time you saw James and the Giant Peach?
I mean, it's been a minute.
I actually watched it probably 2 years ago, and yeah, that was definitely a nostalgia thing looking back on it as a kid for me.
No.
Watching it again, the first part with whatever it is it his aunts that he's living with or whatever?
Yeah.
That whole little first part is it's just so cringy, going back and looking at it. So I would definitely agree with their pick of it in the bottom five.
I don't know, man. Every to each their own, of course, but I am a little upset that Black Cauldron is in this and Home on the Range is not.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Black Cauldron was okay for me. It definitely wasn't, the pinnacle of Disney animation, but
was it better than Home on the Range, Brian?
I still haven't seen that entire movie. I don't think I've forced
I think that
myself
speaks
to watch
volumes.
it.
Oh, man. I don't know. I'm feeling kind of weird about that now. Obviously a lot of the straight to DVD sequels I'm totally 100% in agreement on, but I think I kind of agree with Charlie. Some of the Tinkerbell movies are kind of charming. Some of them, not all of them.
I've not seen a single one.
I
know Kirsten keeps recommending them, so maybe eventually I'll get to it, but I'm wondering, I don't remember the Doug movie.
I remember watching Doug on Disney Channel, but I don't remember the Doug movie.
I remember the Doug movie, surprisingly.
From what I heard, I don't really remember watching Doug that much after Disney bought it from Nickelodeon, but I heard that they completely ruined it.
They did. I mean, that's what everyone says, but I haven't gone back and watched Doug in a really long time, so I don't know. But this was it was called Doug's First Movie, I think. And I want to say it definitely was released under Disney and not like Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I remember it being on our list. I just don't remember the movie itself. Maybe I'll have to check that one out, even though it's on their worst list.
Yeah, so thank you for updating us on that, Sam and Charlie. I, again, congratulate you on that journey, because that is not a task I wanted to take. So, is there anything you guys want to talk about before we wrap this mini episode up?
I went and did a little Google search because I feel like I did a really terrible job explaining Max Pass. So I found, I think, a pretty good explanation. I feel like I wanted to clear that up before we closed out so that somebody didn't walk away from it being like, wow, that didn't make any sense at all. So this is from the Undercover Tourist website. It says, the waiting period can vary depending on how far off your return window is from when you booked it. If a ride's return window is less than 30 minutes away, then the waiting period is 30 minutes, unless you activate the FastPass within that 30 minutes. Once you scan it at a ride, you're free to make another reservation. If the return window begins between 30 and 90 minutes from when you booked it, the waiting period ends as soon as the return period begins, i.e., if at 2 p.m. you reserve a ride that has a return window of 3 to 4, you can make your next reservation as early as 3 p.m. So, I don't know if hopefully that makes more sense than what I said.
Oh, see, well, I wasn't before, but now I'm definitely confused.
Oh, no. Okay, we'll just cut this part out and forget anything about it. Google it, everyone. You just Google it. Reading it is probably easier than hearing it.
I'll put the link to the Max Pass description in the show notes. That way someone can figure it out.
There you go.
I also want to give a shout out because I just tallied up the points for our bracket. Now, how I wanted to do this is I still wanted it to be a raffle for the most part. But if anybody got it at least like mildly close, I was going to give you an extra couple votes in for that, just so like there is incentive for getting it right. But it was going to be between like the top 4 people that got it right, since we got about like 30 votes. So one of our listeners, John, guessed most of this bracket entirely right. The only thing that he got wrong was that Wilderness Explorers was going to make it a little bit farther than it did. Yeah, the only thing that he voted in differently was that Wilderness Explorers would make it past round 4. Other than that, everything else was 100% correct. So, like, that 1% error is, wow. Yeah,
Dang.
that's really good. But, yeah, so how we'll do this, I guess this is a good way to wrap it up. I'm going to throw all of the votes in, see who came in second, third, and fourth, and then I'll throw you in with John to like a random number picker. Of course, John will get 1 extra vote for that, and then whoever comes out on top, I'll send you an email because I have our listener emails, and we'll discuss how I can get you that $25 gift card. Thank you everyone that played in this bracket, and for everyone that reached out to us and was excited about it. This was really fun, and I'm excited to maybe do something like this again next year.
Yeah.
Then that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you want to be a part of the show, reach out to us on our website at www.station71podcast.com, where you can find links to all of our social media, our email address, and our brand new Google Voice line where you can leave us a voice message. Have anything you want to hear us talk about, we'd be happy to discuss that on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.